Russian President Vladimir Putin says he would like to meet with US President Donald Trump, but the meeting needs to be prepared to make it productive.
We have a desire to hold such a meeting, and I would like to hold this meeting. But I repeat once again, it needs to be prepared so that it brings a result.
Putin hailed Tuesday's talks between senior US and Russian officials and insisted that Ukraine and European countries were not sidelined as was being claimed. The Russian president reasoned that the talks were solely dedicated to Moscow and Washington's relations, and therefore there was no need for anyone else at the table. He said there was no need for a hysterical reaction.
As for the negotiation process, President Trump told me during a telephone conversation, and I can confirm that, of course, the United States assumes that the negotiation process will take place with the participation of both Russia and Ukraine. No one is excluding Ukraine from this process.
However, Trump tore into Ukrainian President Zelensky and repeated Russia's narrative that Ukraine started the war. Speaking at a Saudi-backed investment meeting in Florida, Trump called his Ukrainian counterpart a dictator without election, just hours after using the same word in a Truth Social post, where he had also called him a modestly successful comedian and had claimed he was good at playing Joe Biden like a fiddle. Trump's attack came after Zelensky, reacting to US-Russia talks in Saudi Arabia, from which he alleged Ukraine was excluded, said the US president was living in a disinformation space governed by Moscow.
He refuses to have elections, is low in the real Ukrainian polls. I mean, how can you be high with every city is being demolished? It's hard to be high. Somebody said, oh no, his polls are good. Give me a break. Every city is being demolished. They look like a demolition site, every single one of them.
Ukraine has been under martial law since Russia launched its full-scale invasion in February 2022 and elections were suspended. The dictator remark garnered criticism from European leaders, including German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, who said it is simply wrong and dangerous to deny President Zelensky his democratic legitimacy. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer assured his support to Zelensky, who he called Ukraine's democratically elected leader, adding that it was perfectly reasonable to suspend elections during wartime. On the battlefield, Russia says its forces have breached Ukrainian defensive in the Kursk region, achieving full front advances in this direction and crossed into Ukrainian territory. However, the General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces dismissed these claims, calling them disinformation and emphasizing that Ukrainian forces continue to maintain their defensive positions in that area. Our correspondent Anas Malik is now joining us live from Kiev, Ukraine. Anas Malik, good to see you. I'm sure you've spoken to some Ukrainians, and I don't know how they feel about President Trump's statements where he says that their president is a dictator.
Well, I've been speaking to the people here in Kiev since yesterday, since we got here. It's been a long night for the residents of Kiev. This morning they woke up to the sounds of explosions and in fact overnight explosions that took place, particularly the Russian drones or the kamikaze drones that were sent that were being intercepted by the air defense. The air defense interceptions were audible, they were loud, and in fact it was an all-night snow as well. It was a snowstorm in the capital city of Kiev. The temperatures were down up to -10 with the wind chills making it feels like -14. Even now when I'm talking to you, it's -4. So amidst the temperatures going down on the Celsius, the political temperatures are rising up, and the residents of Kiev, they believe that the comments by US President Donald Trump are unwarranted. It is a blatant interference in their internal affairs. We understand that there are certain problems with President Zelensky's rule, particularly since the invasion began, since February 2022. But they believe that the recent spate of comments, particularly directed from the US administration towards President Zelensky, will lead to people getting behind President Zelensky, irrespective of whatever they think about him, and sort of back him until a workable solution is agreed upon. Remember, the people of Ukraine, while they want a solution out of this war, they want to get out of this conflict, but at the same time, for them, no solution is acceptable without Ukraine being on the table. Eric?
And that being said, Ukraine being on the table, we've seen a sort of shift when it comes to a relationship between President Trump and President Putin. What are Ukrainians saying about this rapport between the US president and the Russian president?
Well, two things. Firstly, they are very clear when it comes to the US president falsely accusing the Ukrainian side on starting this conflict. That is one thing that we're very clear about. Secondly, they're also very clear of the fact that how the US side is pulling the Russian side out of this diplomatic social isolation that it was under since the invasion began. And that is the reason right now, if someone is disliked here in Kiev, at least, that is definitely the US foreign policy makers, for the very fact that they were promised something and they were made to believe or led down into an illusion of certain promises, which of course are not being met anymore. Eric?
Well, Zelensky is kind of facing growing isolation on the world stage. Europe is supporting the president because, according to UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, he says that he was democratically elected and they will support him. How are Ukrainians, are Ukrainians divided on this issue? Because on one end you have the United States and on the other you have Europe.
They are divided. It will not be wrong to say that they are not divided. They're divided because from the European end, most of it is only lip service. They haven't taken much, they haven't given in much when it comes to monetary compensation, and money is needed to run these wars. Money is needed to ensure that this war sustains, that people are fed, that ammunition and supplies are met in time, and that there's not scarcity. When it comes to the European side, there's mostly lip service, so that is what is causing this division. But in the longer scheme of things, I think one thing that the Ukrainian side has abundantly made it clear, having in my conversations with the residents of Kiev and around, is that anything that is enforced on them, be that be a ceasefire, be that be a unilateral agreement, it will not be acceptable to them, and they would prefer to continue to keep on fighting, though while they would want to put an end to this war, but not in the way how the US admins would want it to be. Eric?
All right, we'll have to leave it there. That is our correspondent Anas Malik reporting live from Kiev, Ukraine. Anas, thank you. For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.